I think we all have all of our board colleagues and council colleagues at the table. I think I'm missing one of my colleagues, Councilmember Cunningham. Thank you all for joining us today. Chair Scott,
Mayor Romero,
start us off.
delighted to be here for this joint meeting, otherwise known as the intervention for Steve Christie.
Wow.
Sorry, we surprised you.
All I can say is I've never seen so many Democrats in one place. It's just done that.
Alrighty, so we will start today officially with a joint meeting of the Mayor and Council and the Board of Supervisors. Today's Tuesday, November 18th, and we're going to start with roll call.
Ms. Manriquez, if you could call roll for the board.
Supervisor Allen. Here. Supervisor Cano.
Here.
Supervisor Christie.
Here.
Supervisor Hines.
Present.
Chair Scott.
Here.
That the record show all Pima County Board of Supervisor members are present.
And also wanted to welcome our county attorney, Ms. Conover, and her chief deputy, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Clerk. Please do roll call.
Councilmember Cunningham.
Do we need you on my tail yet? Oh. Here.
Councilmember Dahl.
Here.
Councilmember Lee. Here. Councilmember Perez.
Here.
Councilmember Ulick. Here. Vice Mayor Santa Cruz.
Absent, excused.
Mayor Romero. Here. We have a quorum, Mayor.
Alrighty, thank you so much. We're going to move to item 2.
If you could all rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And really am grateful that Mayor Romero, when she does the land acknowledgement, is going to do the land acknowledgement that we read before all of our board meetings, which was authored by our former colleague and our newest member of the United States House of Representatives.
Thank you. It's an honor. On behalf of Pima County residents, we honor the tribal nations who have served as caretakers of this land from time immemorial and respectfully acknowledge the ancestral homelands of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the multi-millennial presence of the Pasquayaqui tribe within Pima County. Consistent with Pima County's commitment to diversity and inclusion, we strive towards building equal partner relationships with Arizona's tribal nations.
Thank you, Mayor Romero.
Chair Scott.
Supervisor Hines.
Thank you for the acknowledgement. I just wanted to let everyone know that we are joined by the Mayor of South Tucson, Roxy Valenzuela.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Welcome, Mayor Valenzuela. Where is she? Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us as well. Really appreciate that, Supervisor Hines.
I think as we move into item number 4, which is the main reason that we were here, Mayor Romero and I agreed that we would kick this off with each of us making a statement, and I believe you were going to go first.
Thank you, Chair Scott. I really appreciate it. I think that I'm just happy to see all of us here. It's the last time we had a joint meeting. We had to do it virtually because of COVID-19. And I think that it's perfect that we're here. And because like COVID-19, right, when there's an emergency, we are better when we work together as partner jurisdictions. And right now, and for some time now, we both have been working very hard to make sure that we're attending to the issues that's happening in our community. City of Tucson is part of Pima County, and so we have shared residence. And one of the most important issues that we can work together on in partnership is the double crisis of unsheltered homelessness and the lack of affordable housing, as well as a public health crisis of opioid and fentanyl use in our community. These are issues that I've said for many years we can't resolve on our own, right? The city of Tucson cannot resolve on its own. Pima County cannot resolve on its own. Even holding hands and doing work together, we cannot resolve on our own. We need to make sure that both the Board of Supervisors and the city of Tucson and the mayor and council get on our same page so that we can resolve an issue that really is a societal issue that has had lack of investment from all layers of government for many, many decades. And so we are better and have better results when we hold hands, when we work together for the benefit of our mutual constituents. And so I'm happy to be here today. Want to make sure that we talk about the work that has been done so far, what the county does, what the city does, and then what are the gaps in services, both on the justice system and on the behavioral, mental health, substance use issues, the health issues, so that we can find immediate solutions to what we are all seeing on our streets play out, and that those most vulnerable are those that are going through the issue, right? That those most vulnerable are the individuals that have serious mental illnesses, substance use disorders, mental behavioral health issues that are unhoused, that are going through this themselves. So I'm really happy that we're here. I'm looking forward to the conversation and looking forward to a good dialogue.
Mayor Romero, thank you very much, and I really appreciate all of the conversations that we've had last week and this week to help prepare for what I know is going to be a positive and productive meeting. There is always great wisdom to be found in the words of this African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. The issues that brought us here today will often prompt the expression of strong feelings. Homelessness and addiction evoke thoughts of deprivation and suffering that are daunting, frightening, and unsettling. Coming into this meeting, there were words said and sentiments expressed that attest to the magnitude of the challenges we face. Where we can all agree is that we owe it to the people we represent to confront these obstacles in partnership. This meeting has several purposes. First, we will hear from representatives of our professional staffs about what the city and the county are already doing to address these concerns, very often in collaboration. Next, each one of our colleagues will have the opportunity to ask questions of staff or to propose their own ideas. Through dialogue and discussion, we will identify what we need to do differently or better. Those determinations will set the agendas for subsequent joint meetings and, much more significantly, for the ongoing work our teams will take on together. I want to thank each one of my colleagues for your commitment to public service. One goal I have set for myself today is to seek first to understand rather than to be understood. That is a pledge I owe to you as partners in this work. It is also a promise that will help me to be of service to those without shelter and basic needs, to those tormented by addiction, and to everyone else in our community who expect us to lead with selflessness and care. It is always tempting and therefore easy to stay ensconced in the personal or political realm, but these times demand more from us. Today is merely the first time we will come together, but what we do and say here will send a strong message to our constituents about our intentions and our potential. We need to leave any previous disagreements or divisions behind us and keep a sharp focus on moving forward together. Thank you.
And we're all going to do this in 2 hours. Thank you so much, Chair Scott. Really appreciate it. And we do have a presentation by both our Deputy Administrator and our Assistant City Manager. Liz and Steve, I don't know if you all talked about who wanted to start first, but we'll start with Liz, Steve. Okay. So, Mr. Chair, we'll have Deputy County Administrator Steve Holmes start the conversation.
Thank you, Mayor Romero. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Chair Scott, Mayor Romero, our wonderful city council members, and our board of supervisors, Administrator Lesher, our wonderful Tim Timur, pronounce it correctly. We're here really to try to begin to shape a little bit of how we began as a county, or how we're currently thinking, have shaped and prioritized our work in this space, right? And so we've created kind of a few slides that really talks a little bit more about our investments in housing, the justice system, and the health, our health department, our health work as well. I'll start with the first slide just to kind of talk a little bit about what this work has looked like and kind of our thinking behind this work. Our investment in housing has really been, I think, framed around this idea of prevention. As we look at the current issues on the street and the things that we're working on and the prioritization and the urgency here, we have traditionally played a role of investing in prevention work, right? And you'll see a lot of that reflected in our investments and how we thought about kind of the county's role in this space. Of course, these are iterations and part of this dialogue we can involve, but that's kind of been the area that we've taken a lot of stock in, a lot of place a lot of investment. I'll start with this gap funding, which is something we started about 4 years ago, just a little, maybe 3 years ago, where the county, particularly our board of supervisors, wanted us to prioritize $5 million a year in this area to begin to look at what we're calling gap funding, right? To fill the gap for developers who are looking at housing affordability and building, to be able to find some investments or finding some of that last kind of bits of funding that will be essential to help them complete projects, right? More recently, I know through the ideas behind Supervisor Hines, Dr. Hines, had put forth a proposal to look at increasing tax rate over time to really set up a fund of over $250 million over the next 10 years that would be an investment in this space, right? And so that's just an important facet to kind of keep in mind as we're looking at the roles we also have traditionally played, but equally important how we've been thinking about our role in this unique area. We've also have really spent some time looking at rental evictions, right? And how do we prevent that? Considerable investments have been made with our EELS program, which are geared to providing legal support and providing actual rental assistance for people who are about to be evicted, right? And you see about a $10 million investment in that space, which is super important, right? And we want to continue that work. It's a commitment that our Board of Supervisors has made to continue to fund this. We started a lot of this funding with some of the federal dollars and continue to invest in it with our county funds, our general fund. Equally important, just kind of to distinguish, as you see the charts here, we also have looked at what we call community action programs and our Craycroft location. The idea behind our community action programs is really still centered around this idea of prevention, people who are not necessarily on the streets, right? People who need more assistance. How it differs from the EELS program is these are not people necessarily that are facing eviction at that moment, but are really close to it. So we have this continuum of services that we provide as a county, starting with people who just need assistance because they're kind of hard on their luck and they're going to potentially face eviction, to those that are actually facing eviction, and then to those who are actually kind of just got evicted and need a place to stay. Right. And so as you look at kind of the Craycroft house, which we did in partnership with the city originally, right, Liz, to try to figure a way, we're now managing that property to begin to provide some wraparound services in a location for folks who need a place to stay in transition. I can say that in that Craycroft location, we've had about a 91% transition rate, which I think shows some success in getting people from that temporary location into more permanent housing, with the expectation in that program that they're doing the wraparound supports that they need to do to be able to make themselves whole and be able to actually transition financially and, more importantly, just as a family unit to more permanent housing. So I guess the whole theme here, even as I look at the Housing First program justice involved, which that funding, I believe it's the last leg of funding, that was supported through OPCH in a partnership with them for people who are actually exiting the criminal justice system. But it's kind of in that last leg of investment in there. But that, again, trying to really focus more specifically, not only on prevention, but really in the space that we've been thinking has been our kind of jurisdictional role in that space. So that's kind of how we've been thinking of that housing investment from the prevention space. So I'll kind of pivot now a little bit to how we're thinking of the justice involved. And I would be remiss in that to not mention that one of the commitments that we have, as well as home repair and weatherization, that's another place where we have people who need repairs, right? And to stay in those homes and be able to live comfortably, we see that through our community workforce development group to really begin to help support those families and have a good chunk of people to know about that effort as well. But highlights here, gap funding, EOS program, prevention work, all in service to what we see and what our thinking has evolved in the housing space. Let's see. Know which way to point it. All right, there we go. Someone did that for me, I think. As we think about investment adjustment, I'll spend a little bit more time here because I think at the core of what we do in this space is accountability, right? Accountability for individuals as defined by this kind of willingness or obligation to be responsible for your actions, right? But as we've been working together with this, with our courts and with our sheriff's department, I think I'd be remiss not to mention that the accountability in our thinking is more about accountability as a reciprocal process, meaning that for every expectation we have of individuals in this space, or any unit of expectations of accountability in this space, is that we believe we have to provide an equal and unit of support to build capacity to be held accountable. In other words, there's reciprocity in the way we think about accountability, which is not just, you're responsible for your behaviors, but what are we going to do to support you and changing some of those behaviors? So it's real equal unit of support and accountability that we really managed to kind of think about how we look at policy and how we look at support systems along the way. I'll start with the pre-booking module because this is important for the general public, and I know a lot of our city council and boards are familiar with this. But in 2019, there was a concerted effort by the county to reduce the jail population. Right. At that time, it was through some grant funding, but it was the population in the jail at that time was about 75% were felony arrests, about 25% were misdemeanor arrests. Right. And there was a lot of pushback by the community at that time to say, well, why are we having people who are committing misdemeanors staying in jail for so long? Right. Isn't there any other ways to look at this? So through the work on innovation with pretrial services, which is a function of Superior Court, we're able to stand up what we call our pre-trial service pre-booking modular. And you'll see that sitting right outside the jail. It's staffed by pretrial staff, funded now by the county, that time from the grant, so we transitioned to that. But the idea there was to give staff in pretrial services through Superior Court the ability to actually cite and provide a court date to people who were committing lower level misdemeanor offenses, non-domestic violence, right? There was a matrix that was created collaboratively to determine, so the person at the desk could determine, hey, can this person be released? And if so, we can give them a court date and they can move on. Working with all the jurisdictional partners in law enforcement, we made that a first stop for all misdemeanor arrests. As a result of that, I can say that the current ratio in population of jail is around 95% felony to 5% misdemeanor. Not only has it kind of created a situation where we've got where people feel more comfortable about who's in there, right? That they're a danger to the community. But equally important, it's also saved a lot of our jurisdiction's funding from booking, right? I mean, it's I believe for city of Tucson, it's about between 1.2 and 1.8. It's moved in terms of the pricing of that a year in savings because we're avoiding these people being booked and staying the night in jail, which is a cost. So it was twofold, right? It was really trying to make sure that we are balancing who needs to be incarcerated with this idea of is there a potential savings for the jurisdictions in this space, which is super important. What we discovered, though, as a result of that is that because people are now going there at whenever they're being arrested and being released, that we had a lot of people being released in the community at all hours of time at the night, particularly in that area that we had concerns, the people who live in that area who were saying, I got people 3 a.m. coming and, just wandering or, going back and doing other things. So conceptually, as we began to work together and I kind of came into this role, started really thinking more purposely about this idea of warm handoffs, right? And you've heard that conversation a lot. And what does that really mean? This idea and concept around the fact that the criminal justice system is very, I use the term porous, right? And I want to say it's broken, it's porous, right? There's, by the time a certain person's arrested, when they get their hearing, there's a lot of time in between those really important points for an individual to actually show up for the hearing, have their initial appearance for charges first, then a week later, maybe have their hearing, then, the charges are read, maybe they're postponed the hearing. I mean, there's a lot of gaps along the way and voids that were communicated to me at the time by people who are very much in this space to say, hey, we need a lot more warmer handoffs for people, right? People aren't showing up to their court hearings, right? That continues to be an issue that plagues us. Failures to appear are a big problem in our community. People are not showing up for the court date. And guess what happens, right? They have a warrant for the arrest, and that just continues the cycle of issues. So we thought about this idea, okay, well, if we created a building that kind of sat adjacent to the pretrial pre-booking module that could capture people on their way out to really maybe hope and convince them to, not wander, to maybe get a ride home or get some services that they were going to need, was kind of the initial concept of the transition center, which is now in place right now. And the kind of the theory of action guiding that particular module was that the idea if we provide recently released individuals from jail or arrest, right, with a trustee conduit, right, or resources of support, then we would significantly reduce recidivism for those who are committing misdemeanor offenses. That was the initial focus of the theory of action that's driving that work, which was lived experience people, intercepting people, having discussions, and hoping we can convince them to get the services they need to show up for court, but also to maybe change some of their behaviors and their trajectory that's causing them to commit some of these crimes. The success rate that we're looking at data that told us that 25% of misdemeanor offenders were rearrested within a month. And that's the data that we were looking at, notwithstanding the concerns by the community. By standing up the transition center, we've seen that number reduced to under 10%. Right, and those are just touch points. Not everyone takes up, the services, but there's follow-up, there's conversations. We now see people dropping by. We've expanded the role to become much more some of the people that are actually leaving jail from felony arrests. That data is a little more wonky, right, because some of them are released to pretrial because they've got a different type of court date coming on. And so we're working collaboratively with them to really see how we can look at the data in that space. It continues to evolve. I don't think we're complete with what the transition center is or can be, but I think it's a continued evolvement in this space. And I believe there's going to be continued dialogue. We'll talk about later of how Liz and I are kind of working to think more about that work and how we can continue those idea of warm handoffs to help people really not only get to court but change their behavior. Because right now it's still not as tight as we'd like it to be. Warrant resolution, and I apologize, but I think these are important conceptual ideas that kind of came up. This really also was a concern. As you know, we have many courts, right, in many jurisdictions. So if someone's arrested in Marana, they may not realize, hey, I'm in Marana and I'm trying to figure out where I got to go to court. And you just had this, it continues to be confusion around what court do I go to? How do I do this? We have a lot of people in the encampments who have warrants out who are maybe not aware, they didn't show up. Out of the push of, I know it was Chair Scott was pushing us, hey, let's see how we can expand a little bit about this warrant resolution. I know with our Justice Service, we work closely with pretrial to really begin to create some consolidation in the way we offer meaningful information to folks who have a warrant, right? And have been able to, and it's not something we do as a county, it's actually done through the courts, but we try to ensure we can help connect them with those services and been able to quash a lot of these warrants that have been barriers to housing, have been barriers to other issues as well. And so those are super, and that's an important program that's not, there's not necessarily cost associated with here, but I think I wanted to name it as just kind of how our thinking has evolved in this space and the roles, again, that we have thought about that we play in as we continue to move forward. Initially in this idea, I mean, a lot of our community was really wanting us to look at median signs. That was one of the first things we did, right, to really start looking at ways to discourage panhandling in the corners. I know our colleagues have been also exploring that. I can tell it was an experiment. We were like, well, I don't know if it's going to work, right? We'll put them up there and see what happens. I can say pretty affirmatively that the signs have been helpful in those areas that we put them up with not people. I mean, every now and then they'll get a text from someone that has someone panhandling in front of the sign, right, just to joke with me or something. But the reality, it's rare that you see that, right? And the idea wasn't necessarily an ordinance to say banning panhandling. It was really an ordinance here to keeping people from standing in those medians for long periods of time, which is a safety issue. So we really referenced that as a way to put those signs in place, and as such have seen some success there. But these are kind of these small wins that I thought were really important. I'm gonna jump quickly to this Title 36 amendment. As many of you know, in the state of Arizona, if a person is a danger to themselves or others, there's an ability to hold someone involuntarily in that space for up to 24 hours, right? And I know our MISS team colleagues at the city of Tucson have developed a protocol for that for people who experience crisis and have used the CRC for that purposes. The CRC is our building. We are the landlords of that building. We have no jurisdictional oversight on behavioral health other than we pay for court order evaluations, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But more specifically in here, the reason why I placed this on here as amendment is there was a lot of work done last year by the county in collaboration with some of our partners led by, at that time, it was Supervisor Lee and the Tucson crime-free groups and folks that have been partners and have interest in this space to really look at an amendment to Title 36 that would look more specifically at involuntary stabilization for folks who are experiencing substance use disorder. The current statute under Title 36 limits our ability to hold someone specifically to mental health, right? Although CRC is considered a no wrong door place, so people who are experiencing crisis, and it may be drug-induced crisis, CRC will not turn them away. They will hold them there 23 hours, try to stabilize, but after that, you cannot proceed with a court-ordered evaluation with a person if substance use is really at the core of their crisis, right? There are other states that have these on the books. Arizona does not. So the purpose of this statute, which was SB 1257, was to really try to create a real narrow way in which we could hold someone a little bit longer in the CRC for stabilization. That met a lot of resistance too at the legislative level. That was not passed, but it was kind of there's people on both sides, right, who have some concerns about involuntarily holding people. We really tried to thread the needle, particularly when it came to the stabilization for people at CRC, so that we didn't have an open process for people picking up people who are having substance use disorder. Even in that narrow strand, we had very little success I know our county attorney is working on maybe picking up some of that and looking what that could look like with a lot more input from her and her team, seeing what we can maybe do in that space. But currently there is not statutory authority to hold anyone for substance use disorder. So that's just important note as we're kind of thinking through where we go with a lot of this. Some of the programs that I think are important investments for us have been our INVEST program, no pun intended there, but it's our Detaining Crisis Services division has really did a great job for working with people with mental health concerns and substance use who are actually sitting in the jail longer term, who have, waiting some sentence. So these are not people, as you know, our jail population, the vast majority of people entering the jail are released within 24 hours, right? That's just, they sit in the pit, they're just, right, that makes up a good chunk, right? But then you have people who are waiting trial or are waiting, or have not been able to post bond. Most of their felony offenses where the initial appearance judge feels like this person needs to be held because they're a danger to the community, right? And that's the authority that our judges have as independent judicial authority. So what the INVEST team has done has really been looking more long-term at really addressing those people, building a relationship with folks so that as they exit the jail longer term, that they have a connection point to actually get into a housing and a continued treatment program. I can talk a lot about the successes they have, but that has led to a little bit to better services for release planning. So a lot of systems that have been built through our Detaining Crisis Services department, more specifically with INVEST and these exit planning have been great because they have resulted in people not having that gap, right? Warm handoffs, right? We keep talking about that. But people sometimes leave the jail and they got no place to go, right? And so this has helped, at least with that sliver of folks who are experiencing those two concurring issues that I explained earlier. And then lastly, kind of in this space, I'll just kind of jump just quickly to the idea of the STEPS program. I know under our county attorney, that continues to be an area that I think we want to continue to invest in. It's a diversion, right? Pre-indictment diversion program that has had great success. We've helped at one point, our state reduced amount of funding for probation officers, maybe 2 years ago. And so we were able to kind of use county funds to help support that because many of those programs are going to be cut where probation officers are assigned to STEPS, right? Because they still need a probation officer to make sure they attend some of those. And so some of these investments that we made and continue to make have been to offset some of the state cuts for probation officers that were essential in these areas that were not necessarily people that are being released from jail, but were assigned to programs that were important for diversion. So I just want to name that as I transition to the kind of last section here. Someone may need to help me. I got. And lastly, kind of in the area of public health, there was a memo that was submitted by the health department. It was attached to the agenda, which talked a little bit about the work that the health department has done since 2018 in this area, particularly as it relates to substance use disorder. The Community Mental Health and Addiction Program over time has invested, and I'll bundle some of these first 5 bullets, over about $14 million over the past since 2018 in this space. Right, and a lot of it has been in these areas of education, mitigation, kind of engagement efforts, and monitoring, right? And so education, again, prevention, from housing to this work that we're doing in the opioid space, I think continues to be an important area that we want to continue to invest in. The education of young adults about the harms of fentanyl, of community, talking to people is a huge investment that we've made in that area. When it comes to monitoring, we also made a huge investment in monitoring opioid deaths. We now have a dashboard. You can see how many people are dying from opioid overdoses, and we've been tracking that. With some of these harm prevention efforts that we're invested in, Narcan distribution, fentanyl strips, we've seen a decline in that, but we're starting to see some concerning data about maybe that picking up. Some of the fentanyl that's now the car fentanyl that's out there. It's made our way to our community that where Narcan won't get someone out of that trouble of that for overdose. Those are becoming more and more prominent and become the concern. So we're seeing some uptick in that space and are exploring that. One of the things the health department and I have had a more recent conversation about has been the idea of evaluating the impact of this work. I think from 2018 till now, I think we've done some great work and we'll continue to make some efforts in that. But we're talking about having an external evaluator come in from CDC and maybe somewhere else to really review what we're doing, right? Because I think we all are perplexed by kind of how do we fix this, right? And I think one of the things I know our health department has been kind of their mantra has been, hey, if we can do it better, let's do it better, right? And so we are going to invest in kind of a review of the work to date and see if we have to strategically abandon some of the efforts and do something different, right? And so that's kind of at the stage that we're at in this investment as we continue to receive some of the overdose to action fund to see, do we need to pivot some of those monies? Is there another area that we should be investing in to make sure that we're addressing some of the currents that we're seeing currently out on the street? You see, one of the other areas, and I don't see Chief Kazmar, that one of the concerns that our community had, there were a lot of overdoses in the jail not too long ago. We had community outrage about it, right? And I know the sheriff, we worked with our sheriff's department to up their staffing in the jail. But one investment I think gets lost is that we also invested $3 million to actually have MAT services in the jail. For those who do not know what MAT is, it's medical assisted treatment. We know that a good chunk of individuals who are committing crimes have a co-occurrence with some drug addiction, right? And so rather than kind of wait and see who kind of says, hey, I'm addicted, we've created a kind of a universal MAT services for folks across the jail. It costs us some money. It's been a considerable investment, but it's really, I mean, we haven't had an overdose in the jail since we kind of put this in place. That's the real data that I think is really important as we're looking at that. But it comes at a cost, right? It's not necessarily that we're investing that in people on the streets, but the people that are in our community. I think it's important that we know that we're looking at incarceration, right? We don't want people to die in our hands, right? And so that's been a really important investment that we made in that space. And NAFCARE, as controversial, we're exploring whether we bring that investment in-house. We did make an investment about 2 years ago of additional $5 million to really address some of the concerns that were brought forth by TPD in relationship to medical rejections. I have and I'm showing this to Liz, I have a folder of medical rejections that we keep now as a better understanding. But at that time, there was a concern that the amount of people that are being arrested for fentanyl and getting rejected and having to be taken back to the hospital, just for the general public, there are cases that where people are being booked in jail and are medically rejected, where they have to be taken to an ER to be looked at before they're able to finish the booking process, and a lot of it is just some real serious health concerns. Fentanyl was one of those. And so we invested in additional staffing and medical staff that it's allowed us to actually not have so many of those being fentanyl related. I think we've been under 10 a month, roughly, on average, since January as a result of that investment. Medical rejections for that particular, and so that's a huge investment. And then just to again restate, we pay about $3.4 million annually for court order evaluation. I just want to make sure, because there's some misunderstanding of this space, is that our statutory obligation for people who are experiencing crisis is the court order evaluation period for folks, right? So I'm experiencing crisis. For mental health, I go into the CRC. Those first 24 hours are not paid by us. The county taxpayers are paying for that. But after that, if there's a concern by the medical staff that they want to evaluate that person for a longer term stay, then there's a whole petition process that's part of that, working with our county attorney's office to really hold that person for longer than 24 hours and evaluate them. During that evaluation period, the county pays for those days, which people are being evaluated and being held involuntarily. And then the decision is made whether they have a longer term treatment or not. but that's just clarifying what our investment is. And then lastly, just kind of some of the work more specifically in our infrastructures have been the opioid settlement funds that we're working collaborative on. Today we have on our agenda later this afternoon when we return at 7 p.m. will be our Safer Center to begin to explore ways to fund current detox vendors who are in our community to really enhance some of their detox facilities, to allow people to stay a little longer, maybe keep some pets, keep some belongings. So it really is an effort to really expand efforts in that space to see if we can bring some kind of motivation to people to stay longer. But I'll stay with that. I apologize a little longer, but I thought the context of the thinking, I think, was important given some of this laundry list of things. I thought it was relevant to give a little bit of an explanation of how we've derived at some of these innovations and ideas and funding mechanisms here. And I'll turn over to my colleague.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, Board of Supervisors, and staff. It's a pleasure to be able to share with you the work that we're doing at City of Tucson. I want to start off with, and I'm sure you're all familiar with our Safe City initiative that was just launched recently under Mayor Romero's leadership. In response to the growing concerns. We've been working on so many things for so many years, but there seems to be a real nexus of some of these tough issues. The rising unsheltered homelessness, the increase of substance use and mental health challenges, limited treatment and shelter options, and declining perceptions of public safety, and the reality of some of those public safety concerns, and then the visible blight, the trash, the things that we're seeing as a result of a lot of these encampments and just people loitering around. So, as a city, we have done many things over the course of the last 6 years. We've seen implementation of several new services and efforts, and we know that all of these things have been happening in multiple spaces. But this work of Safe City is really to bring it all under one umbrella, to be better coordinated, to be looking at what is working, and of course change on those things that are not. The city, we have been operating in spaces that are not traditionally city services, and yet we know that these are urgent, immediate needs that we have in the community, and where can we plug in, where can we help fill some of those gaps. And I want to acknowledge our county partners and the departments who have been through all those long discussions and brainstorming and how do we work together, and there's many efforts, more than not, that we're working together. So I'm grateful for the work that we get to do together. The goal of Safe City is really simple. It's improving public safety and enhancing the quality of life for all Tucsonans. And so the work I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach than my counterpart here around what are some of those things, because you should have all received a similar spreadsheet, a little larger with a little more colors. And then an additional packet really goes into more description of what those programs are. So for the general public and any of you that would be interested in what does that look like and what does that mean. So knowing you have that material, I will not go into the detail, but provide some of the high level understanding and some examples of this work that we're doing. So we know we have a housing and community development department. We also have a Housing First program that the mayor and council brought in 2020 and has really grown since its inception to do many things. We do outreach and navigation. We have purchased properties to do low barrier shelters. Not all of them are operated by the city, but we own 5 of them, and with our American Rescue we've spent $21 million, thank you to Mayor and Council, for that investment, because those have become lifelines for many of our unsheltered neighbors. We also have programs and services like our multidisciplinary outreach team, which partners together our city outreach team, OPCS, Behavioral Health Services, and now Rio, with medical services, and they go out to encampments and to places where there's unsheltered, and they provide basic care, and they also provide some immediate medical assessments and trying to get them connected back into the community. That has really become a very powerful organized effort. Today, many of you may have heard of 100 Acre Woods. Today was our third phase of decommissioning that area, which has long been known as a large encampment area. And the effort, the compassion, the work that we have done to really engage with those who are living there, and so many of them, we've been able to connect them into recently renovated Amazon Motel, about 70 individuals to that location. So today was an important event today for us to finish that work and then continue to help them in their housing or whatever other locations we've been able to shelter, other options that they took. I do want to acknowledge in that work with 100 Acre Woods is TPCH, Tucson Pima Collaboration and Homelessness. That planning body has been very involved and brought together countless providers and agencies to work together to serve them. So again, everything we do is in collaboration. Next, around safety and accountability, the work we do around community safety, health, and wellness, again, another effective program that has been was in the last few years by Mayor and Council to say, let's do how do we get the right work in the right hands? How do we take the work off of our public safety frontline staff and use it to connect people to those social supports and services? And so that work has grown as well and changed and evolved to be as impactful as we can get it to the people who need it the most. So as an example, we have care coordinators who receive referrals, whether it's through our 311 lines, through our various providers, mayor and council offices, as they identify people who are in need. Our care coordinators are connecting them to social services that are already existing and working with whether it's health, mental health, behavioral health, substance use. And we've expanded to take advantage of some of the funding through the state around opioid response to do education and to really help people with opioid substance use disorders. I also, the work that we've done with VIVA, which stands for Violence Interruption and Vulnerability Vitalization Action, came out of an effort that Tucson Police Department piloted. It was geared to reduce gun violence. Highly successful because it wasn't just about disrupting or dismantling those crime networks in those hot spots that were identified where there was high gun violence. It also was about supporting the residents in the neighborhood in that area. And that has been very impactful through our community enrichment coordinators and subsequently has led us to implementing an Office of Violence Prevention. And so that work will continue to grow and with the goal of really working to keep our community safe and also holding people accountable. Our Tucson Police Department, I could give you a whole day's talk on all the work that Tucson Police, very proud of the work they're doing. I just want to talk about the core team and their mental health team, the work they do to proactively engage with unsheltered persons, with some persons with mental health issues or crisis, those who are actively using and really putting that warm handoff as to what can we do to help you and let's get you where you need to go. And so that work has really been impactful. We often have our outreach workers embedded. We also have Kodak and Community Bridges embedded with our core team to go out there so that when they're meeting with them, they don't have to say, show up to this place. They have the staff on site ready to work with them. Yes. And so prevention and community pride, I want to say prevention. We need more of that. And I appreciate and grateful to the county for some of that work around eviction prevention and really trying to help people who are in crisis. We also have additional work that we do there with our crisis call takers. We have embedded crisis call takers in our 911 center. The 311 has also proven to be a lifeline where people are maybe not having an immediate emergency event, but obviously have issues and concerns that need help. And so having a combined 911 center, 311, and crisis call takers has really made us very effective in addressing people as they're calling in. Our Tucson Community Risk Reduction, which is under our Tucson Fire Department, that work is critical in providing education and interventions. They've reached more than 25,000 residents last year. As an example, one of those programs is our TC3. It's a collaboration with Tucson Medical Center, really serving the very medically vulnerable. So these are things that we're doing to really reach people before they get in a place where they're in crisis or are on the streets. I do want to mention our Thrive Zones. This has been an effort to, some will use the term community revitalization, but really what it is an area, we'll use Thrive in the 05 and the 29th Street corridor are two Thrive zones around investing into those neighborhoods. Neighborhoods have been historically disinvested, people who really have things like food deserts and lack of access to health care, and bringing in and identifying what are those things that are needed in that community and then delivering on that, and really focusing on how to develop affordable housing and other housing options for people in the neighborhood so they can have quality, safe places to live. Finally, around community pride, Team Up to Clean Up. If you haven't done it, we invite you. It's a great way to bring volunteers together to clean up, and often they're neighborhood leaders, neighborhood associations who are wanting to do this, and we go in and we clean the areas. We want everyone to feel pride in where they live. We have our homeless work program that we partner and fund with Old Pueblo Community Services. That also ensures that we're doing major cleanups around the area so that as we're trying to help people, often people are transient in many of these places and leaving behind things. So that work is things that we're really taking up and making sure that's part of our safe city. So now Steve and I are going to tag team this, and one of the things we wanted to do was talk about some of the gaps that we know and the sources that we use.
So there's a few analysis and reviews that we're conducting currently that have been helpful in kind of shaping a little bit more of what the next iteration of the work would look like. There's Pima County Health Department did a needs assessment in 2014 of September. The City of Tucson created a gaps analysis framework, actually, that was distributed in February of 2025. Our Justice under Kate Vesley department had been working specifically with sequential intercept mapping. If you wonder what that big SIMS mapping is, it really is taking each point of connections with individuals as they enter the criminal justice system and figuring out the gaps associated with some of their addictions or services that are lacking for them at that time. That map is complete along with TPCH's gap analysis that was conducted in 2024 through 25, I think we're seeing how we can take all those that information that's robust and important to begin to kind of craft these areas of improvement that I think are important for us to consider as we move forward. Equally important, as we're kind of partnering, we're also trying to address some of the fragmentation and coordination gaps. There are limited cross-system data sharing. Some of that is very purposeful. Others of it is we ask why not, right? And so we're trying to figure out how we can connect data systems better, have a lot of people at the table. And equally important is the issues associated with kind of siloed efforts, right? A lot of people doing great work in each of their corresponding areas, but I'm not too sure there's synergy yet that's been created in that space to create not only warm handoffs, but actually have some impact and outcomes that I think our community is expecting from us. And then lastly, at least in my section here, is the treatment and services gaps. We know that there's underutilized delays in authorization. That's a problem. We think, people's health insurance will cover it. Authorization for coverage, particularly as it comes to residential treatment, is very much more difficult than people really think. It's gotten worse, right? And the funding has kind of dried up. For particularly when we look at MAT services and detox long-term recovery facilities, there are beds open, right? But people are unable to go to those beds because they don't have the coverage, right? So when people are waiting and someone's telling them, no, we can't fund you, right? And so that's a problem. And then some delays, crisis response delays, right? And some of that staffing, there's just a lot of overwhelming issues that people are dealing with, which that delay 1 to 2 hours is, can be problematic, right, for us. And I'll turn it back over to Liz.
Additional gaps, really, we've heard from the community and through these various sources, the transportation challenges. How do we get people from point A to point B? It seems like such a small, minor issue, but it is really finding where we're dropping people or losing people in getting them to the help that they need. And what you just said, Steve, around the authorization, the difficulty in obtaining access timely. So we had a meeting with Arizona Complete Health and Access representatives to say, explain to me, please, why when people say they leave jail, they can't go straight into a residential bed, because that would be ideal. Because the minute they leave jail, if they have any time, if they have to wait a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we're going to lose them. So Access explained to us it's like a pre-authorization. And I'm like, I understand that. I've dealt with that. It's frustrating, and it's a gap that we have right now. Cultural and linguistic barriers, lacking bilingual staff. I think we know that is always a challenge in making sure we're providing services to people so that they can access it and understand what the requirements or the eligibility requirements are. Around homelessness and housing gaps, this is no surprise. We don't have the number of beds and supportive housing that is the need that we have. We have many encampments that have grown over the years, and we've seen significant issues of safety and environmental concerns. And then discharge planning was one of the things we've heard from frontline staff as people, whether they're leaving jail, hospitals, other types of programs. If you don't have a good plan in place for their exit, you're going to lose them. They're going to go back to what they were doing that got them into that difficulty. So how do we do discharge planning in a way that those connections are there and we can get people through without disruption? Around public safety and justice system, Steve mentioned high failure to appear rates. We know our court staffing, they are maxed out. Our city courts, we are, as we do this work, we know that there's huge numbers. Community court was one of the things I wanted to mention earlier. One of the things we want new, we were doing 2 Fridays a month. We've increased that to every Friday, but that required some moving and changing, and I'm very grateful to our presiding magistrate, Judge Klotz, and the work that he's done with Judge Blue. Those things are impactful when we can ensure we're doing this kind of specialty courts to really address these issues that provides on-site services. But we could do that every day, and we would still have need around that. Diversion and deflection. Steve knows this better than I, but we're not getting people accepting them at the same levels in the past. And then long booking times does create some issues for us as we're trying to get people arrested and booked, and then getting our officers back on the street. Those things are impacting our systems. I'm sorry for the heading here. The heading didn't change, but this heading is really around what are potential collaborations, and actually collaborations already underway, but where can these two elected bodies really focus your efforts? And this is staff recommendation. One, first, thank you to Chair Scott and Mayor Romero for convening the Metro Justice work. We have these work groups. They're working on 4 issues right now. This is, again, city, county, staff, and we're bringing in others that need to be at the table around these big major gaps that we just discussed. And so we're hoping to bring some recommendations in December around how we address some of these issues. Data sharing across systems, I think there's incredible potential and opportunity here that we haven't really scratched the surface yet. If we can do more of this, we will be able to give those of you, as you make decisions, good information to how to invest. And third, around how do we strengthen partnerships, both at the state level with our regional behavioral health and our nonprofits, and I didn't put in here our faith-based partners. There's lots of opportunities to address these gaps when we strengthen these partnerships. And finally, Steve made mention, there's a potential pilot that we're pulling together this idea around those who are just as involved with substance use. How do we get them, whether it's from the transition center, from the safer center, how do we get them into shelter? Because one of the things we've learned from the transition center is many of them, when they come out of jail, they don't have a place to go. Let's find them a shelter, which the city, we have a project, a property that we've identified that needs, but will need funding because the funding will run out. And how do we get them treatment on site, and how do we get them into residential beds or other transitional housing so that we can ensure that they have a continuum of housing and services that will lead them to being able to be sober and contribute back to the community. So I propose these 4 areas of collaboration, and I appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Steve and Liz. I, for one, I would highly encourage my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors. I know that the Mayor and Council is familiar with the list of all of the services that the City of Tucson provides. It really is a long list of programs and services that we've created because we've seen firsthand in the last 6 years the gaps in services, especially in unsheltered homelessness and the public health crisis regarding opioid and fentanyl that's happening in our streets. So we've created programs that didn't exist before, and so I would love for you all to take a look at that. And then the funds dedicated by the City of Tucson in the millions, right? I saw the list of the services provided by Pima County and the money invested in it. The list that Assistant City Manager Morales provided of the funds invested in these programs are in the millions. So I think I'd like to call attention to the public safety, to your recommendations, that last page, the last slide, developing a pilot to address gaps for justice involved, providing shelter and treatment, I think is a really worthy effort to put time and attention to on behalf of both Pima County and the City of Tucson, because I think for me, I would like to really call attention to the needs that we have in our streets. After all the millions of dollars invested by both Pima County and the City of Tucson, some of these funds are federal funds that we've received in the previous administration, we still see a need on our streets. And so we still see people really on the streets that we can visually see that need help, that are either unsheltered, have serious mental illnesses, or are addicted to fentanyl and or other really harsh street drugs. That, I think, if we focus our attention and our time in trying to find a solution and a tangible result to find help for those individuals that are really actually victims themselves, right? They're victims of their substance use disorders. They're victims many times of being unsafe themselves on the street. That, I think, is an important piece that we're not going to solve today, I'm sure, but we should focus our time and attention to figuring out solutions for. So thank you so much. I think we're going to start the opportunity for our colleagues on the mayor and council and the board of supervisors to make your comments. Because of the lack of time, we've put 5 minutes or assigned 5 minutes to each. We're going to alternate between council colleagues and board of supervisors colleagues. And I really would like to also mention, if you do have questions and want to ask them here, we can have our city manager and our county administrator respond to those questions that you might have that we might not have time to respond to. And they could do it in a joint memo responding to all of us. So I would usually start with the vice mayor, but she is representing us at the National League of Cities. So what I'm going to do is I usually start 1 to 6. Sometimes I alternate 6 to 1. So what I'll do in the absence of my vice mayor, we're going to start with Ward 6. And I'll invite my colleague, Councilmember Ulick, to start.
Thank you, Mayor Romero, Chairman Scott, and County Administrator Jen, and City Manager Tim, and Steve and Liz. I feel deep gratitude to the leadership team that we have and the fact that we're all at the same table, an important step. And I know that some discomfort brought us here, right? And some difficult dialogue. Good on us and good on you for going there, because these are tough issues. And if we're not willing to go there when we know families have to go there at their dinner tables, they're worried about their children on the streets of Tucson, or they've already lost loved ones to this crisis, we need to go there. And so I feel really grateful that even though it took that to get us here, we're here. We're here, and we need to be here. So gratitude and hope, I think, are two things that come to the forefront for me. Hope in that after reviewing all of the recommendations and all of the investments, I do believe they're well informed. And we've had communications with our county attorney, with our police department. There's not a player in this effort who has bad intentions or is, quite frankly, necessarily even ill-informed. My belief is that there are gaps. And so I agree with you, Mayor, and to the staff for the recommendations. I think looking at those gaps and figuring out how to prioritize our efforts collectively. I want to note that from my perspective, representing Ward 6, I do represent an urban area. I recognize that South Tucson, Old Pascua, and New Pascua, many Tohono O'odham tribal members live in the urban core, that this is not even just a city-county thing, right? This is just the urban core of our valley is suffering in a particular way. And so I know that the collaboration even more broadly will continue. I was going to time myself, so please just tell me to stop. But just very briefly, it's so challenging because it's our justice system and our law enforcement system that's being called to action to address a health crisis. These are health issues. And if I had cancer or kidney disease, nobody would be hauling me off to jail. But if I have mental illness or I'm addicted, guess what? Right now, there are huge gaps in our behavioral health system. And there are maybe some opportunities. So very briefly, I know that at the federal level, I believe there may be litigation regarding mental health parity. The health insurance system has never, addiction is treated like an acute knee injury. And after you get wrapped up and leave the ER, you're supposed to be better. It is not. These are chronic conditions that are not treated with parity. And so if there is litigation with CMS or Medicaid, I hope we could look into that and perhaps join forces to push on the need for parity within our health system. The second thing is, even if we offer, and we will, try to fill these gaps, we've had some real issues in Arizona where we know under the American Indian Health Plan, there were bad actors offering housing, food, employment, treatment. Come on, get in the van. Folks ended up, mostly American Indian folks, ended up trapped with no ID and no treatment, exploited, right? And so when we look at folks who are suffering on the streets and saying, why the hell don't they get into treatment? Why don't they take us up on our offers? There are often good reasons. And so as we approach options, I hope we'll keep that in mind. And finally, in terms of great models and options there are, Oxford House keeps coming to my mind. It's a peer-based model. They rent houses and peer-to-peer folks help each other stay in recovery and affordable housing. So there are opportunities, there are partners, there are paths forward. And again, I guess to end on a note of hope, I can't imagine between the city and county and our colleague jurisdictions, we've got the right people and the right leadership to find this path. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Supervisor Allen is the vice chair of our board, so I had her going next, and then to my colleagues. If you wondered why I did the rest of you in the order that I did it based on service on the board. So Supervisor Christie would be our next supervisor, followed by Supervisor Hines, and then Supervisor Cano. Supervisor Allen.
Set my timer. First of all,
Ms. Manriquez has the timer.
Oh, okay. the gotcha. So thank you all for being here. And for pulling this together, and clearly all of the work that has been done and the deep commitment to the dignity, the safety, the wellness of our community. It is so clear from looking at the presentations of the work that we are doing, the investments that we are making, that we are committed to tackling this crisis in a multitude of ways. And I just have to say that there's a couple underlying things. One is the urgency of the moment, right? That we already, if you just threw a bubble over us, right? There is an urgency of the moment that we can see and that we can feel every single day in our community. And that urgency is exacerbated right now. We just had a long discussion in our board meeting around the impact on SNAP benefits, right, and the food crisis that is happening as well as in our community, of it being more difficult for people to get access to food, and then the domino effect that creates on increased eviction rates when people are making choices between food and rent, and then the housing crisis, and then what we know looming on the horizon is a healthcare crisis. So all of that adds another layer of urgency for clear thought and an increase in our commitment to important action, difficult action. The other thing I will mention too, and this is a piece of gratitude for knowing that how we think about and look at our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters who are experiencing homelessness, who are experiencing mental health crises, who are experiencing substance use disorder out on the streets. And I think we all know someone, have someone, a neighbor, a family member who is there. And I appreciate that our efforts treat people as though they are our own family members. That is the level of respect and dignity that they are afforded as they go through and experience interactions with us and the programs that we have set up. I think in terms of thinking about the things that we could be doing more and better together, I kind of put them in three buckets. One is around harm reduction work. One around trying to weave back together a safety net. And then a third that is about going upstream. How do we get more than just our nose above water, but can get our communities standing on solid, stable ground? So in terms of thinking about harm reduction, one of which I feel is incredibly important focus for us, and one in which we could be doing a lot more work. And I think of it Oh, I was like, whoa. I'm echoing in my head. Harm reduction in my mind, it is there's the adage about you meet people where they're at. And then to get people to take the smallest step, because it is a big step to say from where you are to commit to going into an institution for treatment. So the smallest steps that can get people into a place of safety are things that the city is doing with the Star Village, right? Thinking about safe encampments where people can camp in with some safety. Thinking about safe parking. Thinking about safe use and overdose prevention sites. All of those can appeal to folks that want a modicum of stability and safety and getting that small step where they can get that, right? And those are folks that we want to talk to, right? And then introduce people to the other programs and opportunities that exist. But it is a small step, and that is where I feel like we could be investing significantly more there. Related to that, and this has been talked about, is the absolute importance of medically assisted treatment and ensuring folks are going through, especially from the jail, and ensuring the folks that have that treatment program are getting on a path and ensuring that that can continue upon the release from jail, and greater investments in medically assisted treatment opportunities and clinics around in the community. Around the safety net, one of the things, I was so happy to see that all of the details, and there's a lot of overlap in things that we've been hearing, but of just the data, syncing up the
Supervisor,
numbers.
I apologize for interrupting. That was 5.
Including my dilemma.
Yes.
But I think you can finish your thought, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Data coordination, right? How many beds there are for shelters, detox, recovery, and we all know, and our affordable housing construction, and putting those numbers aligned together. And then the final upstream, our commitment to prosperity. Mm-hmm. And working together on the prosperity initiative, I think, is our longer term stability for our community.
Thank you. I think that was beautiful. Thank you so much. Great. Thank you for bringing it in. Our next council colleague will be Councilmember Bettis.
Oh, okay. Didn't realize I was going next, friends, but hi, everybody. I think, again, today is a long overdue convening of both of our respective bodies. I had asked Mayor and Council to approve a standing item that had allowed for us to have ongoing conversations at what was happening at the county level, and this was the end goal. So, I know that it's not the end point, and so I'm really thankful for all that work to bring us together today. I think that this is a very surreal experience for me, in that, less than a couple years ago, I lost my little brother to fentanyl. And I think for me, that's one of the most vivid experiences of my life. And not a day has gone by that I didn't have to wonder what would have happened had I had Narcan, because we did. And it's because of the work of the county attorney. It's the work of our county health department. It's the work of our Tucson Police Department that really strategically came together to ensure that we had a prevalence of that resource in our community. And that's just one example. And so, I think that one thing that we both bodies sold themselves short on today was the ways in which we also invest millions in people power and in dollars to support everything from the educational continuum to food security by way of the outside agency process on the county side, by way of P-CHIP on the city side, and then all the other numerous ways that we do so throughout the year. And, I think that we're having this conversation, not acknowledging that there was a bipartisan effort at the federal level under the Biden administration that Trump undercut that would have empowered us to address this crisis. And so we are here taking this on at the cost of our respective jurisdictions, the cost of our respective voters, without the national tools to do so. And so I think to the point that we are seeing by way of the Safe City initiative that Mayor Romero has been leading, and then today, just having looked into the proposed One Pima initiative, are really exciting ways that I think that we are really intentionally bridging a lot of the work. I know that we have some hangups on how to use some opioid dollars, and frankly, I'm still a little upset that the state used the opioid funds the way that it did into our prison system. But all that being said, I think that there is some exciting things on the horizon for our community. And so I ask those beyond this table, our media partners, our nonprofits, to really join in and start listening at this conversation as well. Because I think that we have spent a lot of time as to who does what and why, and less so as to how we can communicate what services are available within our community, because there are. I think that aside from the elephant at the table, there's no reason that all of us as folks with a single commonality can't work together in unison to really point to the ways that we're really investing in our community, and that might be contrary to what some opponents might have to say, but the work is there, and I really think that the brunt of it comes down to our communication, both amongst each other as well as our community. And so I hope to see that as my time on council comes to an end, and I support you all in another way.
Thank you, Council Member, very much. And thank you for stepping up to fill out the term of Council Member Fimbres. I know our entire community is grateful to you. Supervisor Christie.
Elephant in the room. Sorry, About the nicest thing I've been called all day. So don't take me to Las Vegas. I'm going from 4-to-1 odds to 11-to-1 odds. So in any event, I'm going to try to keep my comments brief, and they're not going to be as eloquent as my predecessors. But first of all, I am disappointed that more of our regional partners were not included in this. I think there could have been accommodations made. A lot of the same problems that the jurisdictions in the county deal with are the same ones that the Pima County and City of Tucson are dealing with. They have ideas. They have needs. They should be included at the table. Deputy Administrator Holmes even mentioned an issue with Marana Courts that could have been included, and we could have used that information as well. I'm going to say that I think the basic issue, and I'm just going to speak from what I hear from my constituents and what I hear from predominant members of the community, is that the number one problem with the homeless situation is enforcement. There is no enforcement of breaking the law, and that until there's a robust effort to uphold the law and to make those who are breaking the law accountable, we're going to have a very difficult time trying to convince our community that we're doing anything about it. The best thing I've seen lately was the very high-intensity efforts by the Tucson Police Department to go into the wash areas and into the encampments and arrest people who are breaking the law. Nobody is getting arrested because they are mentally ill. Nobody is getting arrested because they have a drug addiction problem. They are getting arrested because they are breaking the law, and we need accountability of those who are breaking the law with consequences that have teeth. And until we do that, you can go to any parking lot of a Walmart or a Costco and sequester 12 to 50 people, and if you ask them, is the homeless situation in Pima County getting better? And I guarantee you the answer would be a resounding no. In fact, the comments would be that it's getting worse. We have all these wonderful ideas and wonderful programs that we listen to presentations of, numbers of items. The community doesn't know about that, nor in most cases do they even care. All they know is they want the homeless situation off their streets, out of their neighborhoods, away from their businesses, and out of their alleys. And to them, it's not happening. And until we have a robust effort to get the criminality dealt with, we can't go into the other areas of drug addiction and mental health. So I would urge our efforts to support our law enforcement, have joint efforts that should include all of PAG and Pima County and the other law enforcement entities to have a united effort to clean up areas like the Loop and all the issues that Mayor Romero talked about as far as what we see day after day after day that is not going away at the bus stops, at the intersections. And until that happens, the community is not going to be patient while we meander through all of these very important programs. And I know a lot of people went to a great deal of effort and energy to do these policies. But remember, those who did them got paid. So it's important that we make the effort to get law enforcement engaged, get the problem of criminality dealt with, and to get the issues of homelessness, of drug use, of criminality off the streets. And until that happens, we're not going to make much headway with our community or with the services we're trying to provide. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you so much, Supervisor. Appreciate the sentiment of really dealing with a tangible issue that's in our streets. And I think that you and I both agree that we need to be able to attend to the crisis that's happening in our streets. And so thank you for your comments. Councilmember Lee?
Thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate everyone's comments so far. And like the Vice Chair said, listening to all the work being done, I just have no doubt in my mind that each of us care deeply about this work. We're all committed to a shared objective and a shared goal for our community. So no question in my mind that everyone is doing the best work that they can with the resources that we have. I think that's very clear. I do have, Mayor, I'm gonna push the envelope real quick on one quick question to the city manager in order to inform the rest of my comment. But Tim, do you recall how much money we allocated for our data lake pilot? I want to say it was $1 million this budget cycle for the data lake. Of course, I'm going to get nerdy because that's my job.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, honorable Chair, members of the Board of Supervisors, and I'll stop doing that after this time. We did allocate, the Mayor and Council allocated $1 million for the data lake project to assist with data integration across multiple jurisdictions.
Okay, that's the piece that I want to specifically hone in on for the recommendations. As the city manager said, and I do remember advocating for this at budget season, we did allocate $1 million toward a data lake pilot, which would allow us all to pour different data into a space and be able to make meaningful information out of that and insights to inform our decisions. So one thing that I would like to see us do and bring back is really understand where we're at with that pilot that we funded, understanding the progress that's been made to date, the goals that we had for that pilot, and see if we need to adapt as a result of this conversation, include more components to that pilot so that we can kind of go after this particular recommendation. So that's one piece that I'm thinking about. And the other one, I will admit it may sound a little bit corny, but I think that this is something that's kind of missing for me is I don't know that collectively we have a shared defined vision for what we want to see so that underneath of that level, each of us can have goals that we're working on that are tangible, measurable goals that we can start to communicate with each other about and communicate with the community about to make all of this work that we're doing more visible and measurable. So that's one thing that I have seen in other organizations that has, again, it's kind of corny, but it's very effective to make that visible. Not only does it make it visible what we're all doing, but it can also not only identify the gaps, but where there is duplication, an opportunity to be more efficient and collaborate if we're doing some of the same work. So that's something that I would really be interested in exploring, just so, again, we can make everything that we're doing more visible, measurable, and kind of get a little bit more traction on some of the areas that we all want to see more traction on. So those are all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Lee. Supervisor Hines.
Great. This has been fun. I think we should do it more often. I think we're going to do it more often, right? In my capacity as a hospital physician, I deal with members of our community who are unhoused daily, frankly. Discharging people from the hospital to the street is tragic, and we can't always help that because once your wound is healing, your infection is done, we've dealt with a broken bone, your whatever, the hospital is not transitional housing. It's not a place you can stay. So this is something that is very, close to what I do with my other hat. And I appreciate that we're dealing with this. I do think that real-time intel is incredibly important, not just for those that are in our employ, but also in our community. One of the things that attracted me to make my life here in Southern Arizona, in Tucson and Pima County, was the amazing, welcoming people here. I experience that every day. I think that's what so many of us do as well, and maybe get attracted to here as well. I know people want to be helpful here. And in most situations, law enforcement isn't the right answer. These folks are amazing, but if there's, say, a couple of people, maybe they're just, like in the alley behind my house a few days ago, a couple of folks just kind of plopped down, and I said, okay, hold on a second. I don't know who these people are. They're here right now. I'm going to make some calls because I think they might need some assistance. And I can text the chief of police. He loves that, by the way. I can call directors of departments within the Pima County. And so those folks had someone literally within an hour approaching them, not in any sort of you're being handcuffed, but can we help you? What's up? This is maybe the safest place to sit because cars come around here real fast, but do you need anything? And is there anything we can provide for you? And they were very, very cool about that, appreciated the touch, and took some information. And that's the kind of thing. I know we have reporting capacity, but we need to work together on much more real-time responsiveness. Any of us can do what I just did, but the people of our community, I think, also need to be afforded that opportunity because they don't want to just be calling the cops on their friends and neighbors, probably not their friends maybe, but folks that are disadvantaged in the community who are in a rough spot. They don't necessarily need law enforcement. They almost never do, but they do need to be connected with some opportunities. And I think if it's a reporting website that gets to someone in 24 hours, that's not right. That's not going to work. We know that it's got to be at a discharge from a hospital or a clinic or at a transition out of an incarcerated situation or these kinds of touch points. But I believe one of our best resources is our people. And I think they want to do the right thing, and giving them a real-time opportunity to help engage the correct folks is something that they would really embrace and help us to control this problem a lot faster.
Thank you very much, Supervisor.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Our next council member will be Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor Romero, Chair Scott. Thank you all. I feel like I've come home in this work, that half of me has been missing, and I've learned so much from my supervisor colleagues who have spoken, and I imagine from the rest of them as well. We should have been doing this earlier. I hope you will do it again. It's like any good party. Hey, let's do it again soon. When I was elected 4 years ago, I was concerned about climate change. I was concerned about water resources, very important issues, existential issues for Tucson. And I was a neighborhood leader with my wife for decades. And we saw homeless, but I didn't realize the extent of the problem. And it's a huge problem, and it's perceived all across the spectrum, from people who are upset about seeing it to people who have lost loved ones because people on the street didn't get the resources that they could. And frankly, people living on the street are the most vulnerable of our residents. I've learned so much over the 4 years. I'm proud of what the city has done. These are the things I know most closely. The Wildcat Inn has saved families' lives. The cooling center that we offer in Ward 3, which we just provide the space, and the faith-based group provides services in hot summer afternoons, have saved lives. People who got there would have died if they hadn't gotten there. And that makes me very proud. I've learned about that there are bad actors on the street. There absolutely are, with hatchets and knives and guns. And I'm very proud of the Tucson police and what they've done and how they've changed over 4 years. When I was elected and the COVID, the only response to people on the street was the police department. Now we have community safety, health, and wellness. We have other navigators. We work with other nonprofit partners. Police come in when it's a police problem. And that has freed them up more to help businesses, to help
domestic situations, traffic. When I was elected, they weren't doing traffic control. We've tried to get more resources for the police, and we've been somewhat successful. And I hope we can do more. But they've stretched. They came up with community service officers, which is not only cheaper labor, but also a conduit for new recruits. And we have a hard time recruiting people to the police. So from my perspective, we're doing a lot. We all know we're not doing enough. And I think together we will be more strategic. And I feel like this is kind of the peace accords, the Tucson Pima peace accords, but it's gone so much more than that. Now we're kind of two superhero leagues that are joining forces. Our capes are kind of invisible, but we do important good work, and I'm proud to be part of all of this community. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councilmember Dahl. Supervisor Cano.
Thank you, Chair Scott, Mayor Romero, my colleagues on the board and on the City Council. I want to do some quick housekeeping. I want to thank our County Administrator and our City Manager, both clerk offices, and of course our IT and communication staff, in addition to the Pima Association of Governments for hosting us for today's conversation. Being passed around is a document that is hot off the press. It is the county's equivalent to the Safe City Initiative that was adopted in a 4-1 vote by the Board of Supervisors earlier today. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Pages 6 and 7 are the pages I'd be paying attention to in the executive summary. But as part of my remarks, I want to let my colleagues know that Pima County is committed to moving forward with a coordinated, evidence-based approach to safety, treatment, housing, and recovery. We're here together today because the issues we face do not stop at jurisdictional lines. Whether it's fentanyl, homelessness, or the public safety concerns we're hearing from families and businesses along our shared corridors, these are all regional challenges, and One Pima gives us a regional framework as a county to address them. This plan brings together the critical work that we already fund into one unified strategy. First, it accelerates the loop cleanup and directs the county administrator to complete system-wide wash and trail cleanup along the loop before April of next year. It also begins a loop safety plan that is recommendations are to come back to the board also in the spring for a plan to address the safety concerns that we're hearing from loop patrons. I look forward to that plan, including more recommendations on safety signage, upgrading lighting options, and real-time reporting tools to help us all respond to emergencies faster and more effectively. Second, One Pima strengthens our treatment system by expanding the transition center from a 5-day operation to a 7-day operation, piloting the Safer Center for Substance Abuse Recovery and Treatment, maintaining more than $14 million in public health and overdose prevention programs, and investing in the following year proven diversion models like DTAP and the STEPS program. These programs save lives and they keep people out of jail and into treatment. Most importantly, this also sets us on a path toward a coordinated shelter capacity system, as mentioned by my colleague from District 3, one that recognizes that right now we have a system that is not working, and why people avoid shelters, and finding out how we can remove some of those barriers like pets, storage, and basic amenities that need to be provided at our shelters are part of the One Pima plan. And finally, colleagues, One Pima also begins an important conversation that I had with my colleague from Ward 1 earlier in the week, and that is a neighborhood-driven reinvestment strategy for the West Side communities closest to our jail, the transition center, and our fleet services building. These are neighbors in the area who have no choice of their own than to have these buildings, these operations as their neighbors, and as landlords, the county must invest in the West Side, in Barrio Santa Cruz, in Barrio Kroger Lane, in Barrio Sin Nombre, and all of the surrounding West Side neighborhoods, so that we can hear what they need from us so that we can be better neighbors. This is the kind of work that succeeds only when the county and the city act in alignment. One Pima is our commitment to that alignment and that shared goal. It is fiscally responsible, grounded in the realities our community faces, and shaped by what residents are asking us to do. Clean the loop, expand treatment, support our neighborhoods, and respond with solutions, not blame. I look forward to building on this partnership with all of you, and I'm confident that together we can deliver the safety, the compassion, and the accountability that our region deserves. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Cano. Really appreciate you coming to the table with solutions that we need. We need to talk about solutions. It just seems it's beginning to feel like a love fest here, and it feels good. But also there's very tangible, very serious problems that we have. And offering solutions as you've done today, I really appreciate it. I appreciate to hear that the Board of Supervisors voted positively for this idea. And still, again, as we started, right, we're not finding absolute solutions today, but everything that I've been hearing from both council and the Board of Supervisors is targeting where we need to work together in. So our last council colleague speaking today is Council Member Cunningham. And you have the almost last word.
And I'll take it. Mir, the space station Mir. It's a Russian word for village or world. We are the Tucson Mir, the Tucson village or world. And in some dialects, that word actually means peace. And that's what we came here today to do. At the end of the day, both Pima County and City of Tucson are in the people. Well, we're in the people business. We're in the people business to improve the quality of life from everyone in the whole continuum. From the person that my team goes out and engages folks on the street a couple times a month, and from that person who's really had a tough time. We had one guy, we couldn't understand anything he said. He's got some mental health issues. We call him Blue. And he was like half dressed. All of his clothes were tattered. So we bought him some clothes. We started there. And then we were able to develop some rapport. And he's at CBI right now. And we're trying to do the work as well, just so we have an understanding of how difficult it is. And our people on the ground, you have no idea how difficult it is. But we're in this people business where your quality of life is, the way it's affected right now is not really how much income, but your discretionary income. How much do you have in your pocket left over to do cool things? How much, that's part of it. When we talk about quality of life, we talk about whether or not your housing is affordable or you're getting jammed up. We've got way too many lower income families that are working, that are putting in their time, that are getting jammed up, and they're paying too much. And that's actually indirectly and directly attached to this. Because when you think about it, if we've got families that are unfairly getting evicted, they're taking up shelter spaces from people we could take off the street. So all these things slide up and down. In common, we have multiple agencies that do this work. We have a housing, we have courts, we have enforcement, we have health, we have social services, we have corrections. Those are the core things, the 6 things that encompass all this work collectively. We've got to figure out how to marry those. We've got to figure out, there's all these different platitudes that we've had over the years, but at the end of the day, we're a team here, and we're in it together. I'm going to go through a few things that have been thought of and suggested and shot down, and even by me, but I think they're all worth discussion. We've talked about in the city side about merging the courts and about having this misdemeanor court in Pima County, save the city some money, but also the same computer system. Everybody's on the same page. It could enhance case management. There's a lot of things there's a lot of things in politics that probably have short-circuited that, but it may be something worth talking about. We should be talking about whether or not we put our health insurance, when it comes up in the next few years, we put it out to bid together. I don't like it that Aetna and Cigna come to us and say, hey, stick with us because we're the only ones who can partner. I think that if we make a commitment jointly, we're sending that message. I'd love to bring a school district along to do it. and expand our pool and maybe have something that leads to a single payer option, at least for children in Pima County. We'd be the only ones doing it. The same thing with merging the courts. We'd have the opportunity to create a diversion program with mandated rehab. We'd be the only county in the country with a pre-conviction mandated rehab program inpatient. That would be kind of cool to be able to do those things. If we're Tucson, we're going to think ahead of everybody else. We're going to be number one, and I want to do that. One of the things I think we kind of shot down a few times, and I think it's time to revisit it, is maybe Pima County Sheriff's Office and TPD go into some joint programs along with South Tucson Police Department in working calls together. We danced around it a few times. We still have mutual aid programs in there, but maybe it's time to take a look at where logistically, if there's a deputy closer than a officer, they can help us, and we wouldn't just expect the county to absorb the cost. We'd figure out a way to cost share that. I think that's actual tangible things that we can look at. I'm going to save the municipal district and incorporation and annexation talk for another time, but I'm going to tell you that all of you heard me privately say it. It's something that the state of Arizona has put a law into place that has pitted us against each other for too long. We need to address it and figure out how we can make it work and make it work right. In the meantime, at least consider county-owned properties that are adjacent to city parcels, allowing them to be annexed into the city. That would kind of be a great first step. It wouldn't cost the county anything, and it would fill some gaps in service for everybody. I'm going to talk really quick about the public hospital. We had a county general hospital in the 80s. We farmed it out. I'd like to learn more about it and how that catch-all is there. I think it would be really cool if we had some urgent care catch-all, especially with some of our unsheltered. We need to unravel the overlap. So I saw these two joint presentations in both jurisdictions saying, look at all the stuff we've done, and we have. That's awesome, by the way. Steve and Liz, just outstanding the work both of your teams have done. But no one in this room can deny that there's some unusual overlap there. We need to unravel that overlap so we're not duplicating services in certain situations. I'd love to take a look at the real-time shelter availability. Thank you, Supervisor Allen, for bringing up an idea that I thought of a year ago. But I think it's awesome that everybody's talking about it. To have that app on your phone as a social worker and go, oh, there's 2 bed spaces here. Now, right now, what people don't realize is that at GRM, there seems to always be beds. It's about whether or not they can do their intake 24/7. Same thing with the transition center. We're 8 to midnight, Monday through Friday. We need to be 8 to midnight all 7 days a week. We just do. And so I think if we go to that piece and establish an alternative jail program, we'll probably have some better options. We'll be able to lead a path to pre-conviction rehab and some other programs. I heard today that people need to have consequences. I don't think throwing everybody in jail summarily is the best answer, but at the same time, I think that some people need to be catalyzed in their action. And there needs to be a catalyst to get them to their moment of clarity where they're going, hey, I want some help. I don't know if either one's, and there is no magic bullet to do that. But one thing we do need to accept is that rehab is not permanent. Rehab is not an answer, but I'll take 40 days in rehab and 10 months of sobriety over 1 year in jail any day of the week. And we've got to think about this goal. No addict is going to solve their problems. You look at Philip Seymour Hoffman, or you look at Robin Williams, it is a lifelong thing. People have 18, 19 years of sobriety and still struggle. We have to respect that and remember that we're here to support them. Finally, I'm going to close and say that my discontent for the county and city relationship is over. My door is open, and I want to hang out with you guys as much as possible. I want you guys to know that if you want to tour Ward 2 or you want me to tour something else, I will clear my schedule. I will do everything I can to better understand that county work. My roots are in the county government. I started as a juvenile detention officer in 1998 in my public service, if you can believe it. There are things that Pima County Juvenile Court did in the late 90s that were recognized nationally. It was the most cutting-edge juvenile court in the country, and I got to be a part of that as a member of the Juvenile Justice Commission for the state under Jan Napolitano. I think we can take those same ideas and practices and apply them to what we're doing today. So with that, I yield, and thank you everybody for coming this afternoon.
Councilmember Cunningham, thank you very much. And I would have expected no less from a fellow Gridley Grizzly. So thank you. Thank you. You know, I truly appreciated, Mayor, when we were talking yesterday, that you said that the way we should end is talking about tangible outcomes that we can work on moving forward. And I also appreciated that after Mr. Holmes and Ms. Morales were done, that you pointed to their recommendations of 4 areas of focus that we might take on. The Metro System work group that you and I brought together, that Steve and Liz have been doing a great job of organizing into 4 working groups, are going to be making recommendations to us in December. And let's remember that the former city attorney, Mike Rankin, I think summed up the pressing need within those work groups, which is to focus on how we can best work with repeat offenders. The data sharing across systems, I think that's one of the groups that is meeting. I appreciated that was mentioned. Strengthening partnerships with state and regional behavioral health and nonprofits. TPCH is going through their strategic planning process right now, and they have assured us that the interest and needs of jurisdictions are going to be more of a focus in this strategic planning process. And you spoke eloquently already to what we need to do with the 4th recommendation. I appreciated Supervisor Allen recentering us on the Prosperity Initiative, that policy framework that we have in place that is supposed to be guiding so much of our decisions, not just in the budgetary realm, but if you look at those 3 areas, that Mr. Holmes broke down his presentation into: housing, justice, and health. I think if we take a look at the gaps analyses with the Prosperity Initiative as an overall guide, I think we definitely are going to have some direction to staff in terms of future agendas for future joint meetings, and we talked about meeting quarterly, which I think is outstanding. And not only future agendas for future joint meetings, but more significantly, the work that our teams are going to be doing out in the community moving forward.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. I think you and I have met like 5 times this week.
At least.
Really appreciate all the comments. I know that we all, as a few of you have said, come to the table wanting to find solutions. And I appreciated Vice Chair Allen's comments in terms of the urgency element. There's no day that mayor and council don't receive a concern or complaint about encampments or individuals in our bus stops or in our parks or in our alleys. That, just recently happened to Supervisor Hines in front of your house. Right? And so we've got to be able to, we've identified, which is wonderful, this is what you and I wanted. We want to make sure that we identify the steps moving forward. It comes with urgency. And we should look at what the investments that we're doing, and instead of layering them, I think that we need to make sure to see where the gaps are and how best to use our funds to fill those gaps.
And the overlaps.
And the overlaps, right? Where are the overlaps? And I appreciate that Pima County does a lot in prevention and intervention, but we really do need to make sure that we are also looking at the actual concerns that we have that are happening in our streets, and how can both Pima County and the city of Tucson attend to those concerns that are happening on our streets. Because we can do a lot of prevention, and with the opioid settlement funds, you and I have had conversations about this. We have an incredible opportunity. For the next 18 years, we will have access to $126 million to attend, to answer the call of really what is happening on our streets and find transformative, innovative solutions that we know work. And so we've got a really good opportunity to move forward. We have the work that we've been doing since you became chair in terms of putting together the Metro Justice Working Group. We are having incredible meetings and communication with our county attorney. I know that there's been several meetings recently from our city attorney and our county attorney. I know also that our county attorney, who's here, if you'd like to add a couple of words, but we all want to find solutions to the issues that we have in our streets, and we just need to make sure that we're acting with urgency, that we're organizing ourselves, and that we're putting our work to where the issues are. So I really want to, again, thank everyone for the incredible work that's happening. I don't know if our chief of police, if our chief Calsmore is here, but the work that he does and the Tucson Police Department do to attend to our problems of safety and unsheltered homelessness on our streets, and locking arms and working hand in hand with our Housing First teams and with Pima County in terms of the transition center is unbelievably amazing. So lots of gratitude to what everyone is doing. Lots of work to do. This is not going to be the last meeting. We're working on finding quarterly meetings that we can come back and continue working on issues of not just sheltered homelessness and the fentanyl crisis, but also on other issues that were alluded to by some of you. So if there's any additional thoughts, I think we're all good. I think we have our marching orders. Yeah.
I thought all of you would have with hooves and horns. Not the case. And by the way, thank you for everybody being so friendly and gracious. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your meeting, and we're headed out to our own. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. That was great.
Thank you.